All right, here we are, weekend preview edition, Sports Bit, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown, NFL today, the Sunday night game, Carolina and Seattle. You also have the Chiefs and the Falcons, the Giants and the Steelers in an NBA game to talk about as well. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books coming up. Thursday night football, the Cowboys win again, 11 in a row. They don't get the money. A great result for the books, 17-15. The Viking season now over. They were looking at a 7-5 with the win. Playing Jacksonville, doable schedule the rest of the way. Maybe AP comes back. Thielen with the horrible decision, fumbles the punt inside his own 10. What are you doing there? And one of the worst performances you're ever going to see by a punter, Teddy. How about Locke? He killed the Vikings with field position last night.
Yeah, every once in a while you talk about a punter as a point spread player. And I remember Jeff Fiegels covered a point spread for me all by himself one game. Back in the day. Just a guy that stands out. In this case, Locke. And Minnesota covered the number in the end. As you mentioned, a good result for the house. But when you're talking about straight-up result, an enormous impact. And the Vikings, who were carried by their defense and their special teams the first 5 weeks, it's been their special teams that has really let them down ever since. And once again, last night, the difference between winning and losing straight up in that ballgame.
Yep, the false start on the 2-point conversion. And then, I watch all these games, and I like to bet unders too, so I cannot believe some of the calls that the officials make. They didn't call the blow to the head by the Cowboys on Bradford. But 9-7, you're getting the ball. Defense plays a perfect game with the exception of the long pass to Dez, and they can't get a win. Dak, 12 of 18 for 139. They hold Elliott to 86 yards on 20 carries. Witten doesn't have a catch, and they lose the game. How demoralizing.
Very demoralizing, but I think they're already demoralized. And the way they've been losing these games, right there with an opportunity to make a play, and instead somebody else makes a play. And it was a real sharp score divide last night. The Sharps ended up getting the money in the end. They were playing Minnesota plus the points. The Squares, the recreational players, they love teams like Dallas, But when you have a team like Dallas, 9-1 against the spread heading into Thanksgiving, the value that was once there is not there anymore. They're not going to be undervalued. The books that get beat up by the same teams every single week, they make adjustments. And instead of laying 1 with the Cowboys, you laid 3 with the Cowboys. And obviously, pretty big difference in that regard when it came to the point spread result last night.
Yeah, something you want to say about the Cowboys?
Well, it's not just the Cowboys. I mean, one of the weaknesses, we talk a lot about recreational players versus the pros and the Joe's pros divide, the sharp square divide. One of the weaknesses of the Sharps is that they tend to lose too much money with the real outliers, because every year there's a half a dozen outliers. This year there's even more. Look, when you talk about teams, here we are in December. Dallas, New England, Washington, New Orleans. 4 different teams, all with 3 or fewer ATS losses. The Browns, the 49ers, the Bengals, the Cardinals, the Panthers, all with 3 or fewer ATS wins. Those are all real outliers, teams that you can make a fortune betting on or against. And in many ways, one of the strengths of the recreational bettors is that they tend to make money betting on or against the teams they're supposed to be making money betting on or against. Teams they've been riding, and the Squares understand that concept. The Sharps step in front of these teams a little bit too much. They were lucky to get the money last night on Minnesota, but in general, that's something that the Joes do better than the pros, recognize this year's teams that aren't being priced correctly.
Yes, 2 injuries in the NFL yesterday. One, was he out? Was he coming back? It's official now. Cutler's out for the year. It's Barkley the rest of the way. Cutler likely's played his last game in Chicago. And oh no, see you later, Gronkinator. Gronk likely to miss the rest of the season. Brady, his ESPN stats and info tweet. His total QBR with Gronk, 80.4, 65.1 without. Thank God they made the trade for Bennett. Huge blow, though.
Yeah, sure is. With Cutler, Cutler most assuredly had played his last snap in a Bears uniform. He's not coming back, and even if he was healthy, he wasn't getting back on the field. When it comes to Gronk, we're talking about a player whose injury has to affect things like Super Bowl odds. The Patriots with Gronkowski versus without Gronkowski. And I know that Bennett's good, but that offense with 2 tight ends who can stretch the field was unstoppable. The offense without Gronkowski, hey, it's stoppable.
Yes, all right, bad for the books now. Hey, the Greek Freak and the Bucks do it again. Bet up to 5.5. Easy win.
Yeah, Milwaukee, man. The Bucs have everything we want in a make money with this team for months type of squad. They're small market. They have a superstar who no one recognizes when he walks around, whose name no one can pronounce. They're not really any strong market expectations. They got off to a slow start. Milwaukee is the type of team you make money with. Watch them. They're going to go 20-10 ATS next 30. Just watch them, Paulie. You'll see.
All right, I trust you. And they inflate a number because they got Miami on that back-to-back going from Denver to Utah. But credit to Spoelstra, the Heat with the outright win.
Yeah, and I don't know. The money just knee-jerks against any team that wins the first game on the road of a back-to-back set. And a lot of times teams have momentum from that first win. We saw Detroit do it as they went to Boston last night. Or 2 nights ago, we saw Miami do it in Utah last night. It's not necessarily a negative to go on the second night of back-to-backs off a win, especially when your team, it's shorthanded, no question, playing in altitude. We understand the opposing team lets down. Miami's playing, Spoelstra's coaching them up, and they're playing at a high level considering all the injuries that they've had.
Well, it's one thing to say it. You have to go out and prove it and walk the walk after you talk the talk. That's what the Clippers did. What they did to Cleveland on the road surprised me because it was a blowout and a comfortable win, never in doubt.
Yeah, no, come on. If you watch SportsBit, you had to expect it. You heard the quotes we read on yesterday's SportsBit. That was a focused Clippers team. You knew LA was coming to play. There was no surprise. And for Cleveland, again, the Cavs, nothing to prove in November, nothing to prove in December. You're not going to make money betting on teams like Cleveland until these games mean a little bit more.
Yes, that was bad for the books and one bad bet. Listen, we saw this last year. Memphis is a scrappy team. Just because there's injuries, they're still going to play hard and win some games, and they were betting Orlando on the road.
Yeah, no matter how bad things are for the Grizzlies, you're just not looking to lay points with Orlando on the highway with the Magic. They blew a 14-point lead. They had more turnovers and assists in the game. Orlando's a bottom 5 NBA team, not the type of team you can make money with as road chalk.
Up next, big game breakdown. One game in the association. We'll do the Bulls and the Cavs. Then we'll get to the NFL. Some good games this week. And Carolina, Seattle on Sunday night. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy. Time for a big game breakdown. As always, live odds. SportsbookReview.com. Tonight, ESPN. Cavs hit the road to take on the Bulls. We expect no line yet as we tape this. We expect the Cavs to be a short road favorite in this one. The odd schedule catching up with the Bulls. 6-game road trip over 3 different time zones. They were flat. They didn't have anything in the home loss to the Lakers, Teddy.
No, they were out-rebounded 60-46. And LA's not a great rebounding team. That's the worst loss on the boards all season for a Bulls team that's been great on the glass. And of course, you play 6 road games, 3 different time zones, and you have 4 days off before one game. It's not shocking that they were flat. And, of course, the bench is struggling, right now. Without Doug McDermott, without Michael Carter-Williams, those are 2 key guys. And Rajon Rondo, he's shooting under 38% from the floor. The defense is spotty, even though he puts up all those big assist numbers. But, it's a Bulls team that, while they're pretty good, they're a long way from being elite. But it's not a great spot for Cleveland tonight either, Paul.
No. 4th game in 6 days on their 4th different court. J.R. Smith again, 4 for 32 over his last 4 games. You might see Shumpert take his place in the lineup tonight. The last 2 games, they lose by 47.5 points ATS.
Well, yeah, they're not even competitive in the 4th quarter of either ballgame. LeBron sits down the whole 4th quarter again last night. 12 turnovers in the last 2 games. Seem to be forcing action a little bit. The offense out of sync, although that'll happen on a night that the Clippers are playing defense. Bulls don't necessarily play defense at the LA Clippers level, not even close.
All right, to the NFL now. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Good game. Chiefs in Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Falcons 4.5, 49 the total. Chiefs come down from 8 points or more in the 4th quarter to win 3 times this season. How good are they? And how good were they in those wins? Or was it the opponents making a lot of mistakes? You remember the Carolina meltdown, Newton with the pick 6, and San Diego and Denver both missed field goals, but Tyreek Hill becoming a star. First rookie since Gale Sayers to a touchdown on rushing, receiving, and a punt return. But as we've talked about, the numbers and the pros don't like the numbers when you see the stats on this Kansas City team.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've been a remarkable come-from-behind team all year long. Remember week 1 against San Diego, where they rallied from behind. But, yeah, Chargers missed a field goal. Broncos missed a field goal. Carolina threw a pick 6. So how much is Kansas City? How much is their opponent? And the answer is both. But it's not just that Kansas City is playing great football. Their opponents made a ton of mistakes. Now, when you're talking about anybody in the same breath as Gale Sayers, you got to go, wow. Because Gale Sayers is one of those legendary guys, even before I was around, Pauly. I'm not old enough to have seen Gale Sayers on a playing field. But Tyreek Hill right now is the only weapon they have. Look at the graph. It shows everything. Total offense. They've been outgained by more than 600 yards in the year. Yards per pass, they're getting outgained. Yards per rush, they're getting outgained. And when a team goes, 18-3 in their last 21 ball games, and the books get burned by that team again and again and again, the adjustments get made. KC, a small market squad, not a superstar-laden squad. They're the type of team that tends to retain their value, but after this long of a point spread run, it's really hard to do. They've been remarkable straight up in ATS, the best team in the NFL over the last year plus during this span, but the stats show at some point it's going to have to come to an end.
Kyle Shanahan doing a much better job in his second season as OC with the Falcons. Last week, it was Gabriel, who had 4 for 75 and 2 scores. They don't need any more weapons. They have great numbers over the last 5 years.
Well, yeah, they have the best yards per play in the NFL over the last 5 seasons. No one's had a more explosive offense since Drew Brees and the Saints back in 2011. Look at the graphic. Again, Arizona last year with all the downfield shots they were taking, and Aaron Rodgers the year before, and Peyton Manning throwing downfield the year before that, and Drew Brees the year before that. None of them better than what we've seen Matt Ryan do in the second year of Shanahan's offense. Remember, last week Gabriel had all those catches and yards in a game where Julio Jones was basically shut down. So it's not the type of team right now that you can shut down one weapon and expect to beat them.
We'll get back to this game coming up with play of the day. One of the late games. This is a big game. Giants in Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Steelers 6, 48.5 the total. Here we go. A lot like the Chiefs. We talked about this earlier in the week. Look at the Giants. 27th in turnover differential, 31st in rushing, plus 18 on the season in scoring. Only outscored their opponents by 18 points. Somehow, some way, they're 8-3, and we'll get to their pass rush in a second. Are the Steelers back in a groove, or they just beat 2 bad teams?
A little bit from A and a little bit from B. When you play the Browns and then the Colts with Tolzien behind center, you're supposed to win those games. You're supposed to win them comfortably. But Antonio Brown's got 10 touchdown catches now. He's tied for the NFL lead, and that comes despite the fact that he's not getting a whole lot of help from the other wide receivers. And guess what? That receiving core all of a sudden just got healthy. Sammy Coates, he's been banged up. He had an injury to his left hand. He had a broken right index finger. He's clear 100%. Eli Rogers missed 2 games with a toe injury. He's back to 100%. Ladarius Green, who spent most of the year on the sidelines, he had a couple of catches for 67 yards versus Indy. Big plays. He's back in the rotation. And Rogers this week, quote, "We feel like we have the best receiving core in the league. That's how we go about our business. We never worry about another team."
And I'm glad Ben and Tomlin said something to Antonio Brown about the touchdown celebrations and that choreographed crap he does. They said, hey, you're killing the team. It hurts our kick coverage. Knock it off. That's a big penalty. He agreed. Hopefully he cuts it out. The Giants have to put pressure on Ben Roethlisberger to slow down the Steelers, and the pass rush has been among the worst the first half of the season, but JPP getting back in a groove, Teddy.
He sure is. He only had 2 sacks in his first 17 games after returning from blowing his fingers off. The last 2 games, JPP, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble return touchdown as well. There was a pretty big point spread difference maker in that ball game. And you look at his quote. This is a guy who's gotten a second chance in life. He's gotten a second chance with the Giants. Quote, "You tell me what player you see out here with missing fingers. You don't see guys like that. I'm not taking anything away from any other guys playing football, but that's the difference between me and all the other guys. My terrible mistake, but I knew I had the motivation and courage to come back with the help of God and my family. That's what makes me strive to go hard every day. This is the new me. I got to adjust to what I'm capable of doing with my hand. I feel like this is as well as I've played since my new beginning last year. I'm like a rookie all over again. But you're absolutely right in terms of that point, Pauly. If you're going to put this game down to one handicap, the Giants get pressure on Big Ben. They got a chance to cover the number. Big Ben's got all day. Giants ain't covering this number.
We'll find out what they're made of. They can play the Steelers, and they're at home against the Cowboys back-to-back weeks. We finish it off with Detroit and New Orleans and the Sunday night game, Carolina and Seattle, plus the play of the day. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy, Betting Insight today. We continue with Big Game Breakdown. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Lions hit the road to take on the Saints. Saints 6, 53.5 the total. They might be one of the best teams in the league, even though they're 5-6. This is the reverse of Kansas City, Teddy. We showed you their chart. Here's the flip-flop with the Saints.
Yeah, sure. And again, look at the hard numbers, not the straight-up record, the hard stats. Shows that New Orleans has outgained their opponents by more than 700 yards, or by exactly 700 yards in the season. They're outgaining them in yards per pass. They're outgaining them in yards per rush. And oh, by the way, that Saints defense is holding opposing rushers under 4 yards per carry. We haven't seen that out of a New Orleans defense in quite a few years.
Brees, look at the passer rating, 109. Third best of his career, best since 2011. He's topped a QBR rating of 100 in 6 of the last 7 games. The others were 99.3. And the Lions' pass defense allows 74% completion percentage, dead last in the NFL. Matchup issue here, Brees, 71.5 completion percentage, is career high. Quinn, the safety, thinks he looks better than ever.
Well, yeah, here's the quote. Oh, man, he looks better to me. The thing about it, the older you get, especially as a quarterback, the game is so mental. And what he does with his head and his shoulders, he can manipulate you so easily. The fact that he's been doing it for 15 years, he knows exactly what he wants to do. Maybe he can give Carson Palmer some lessons. But you talk about that matchup issue. Yeah, Brees is completing 71.5% of his passes. That's his career high. The Lions' pass defense is allowing 74% completions. That's dead last in the NFL. It seems to be a matchup on paper in which a New Orleans team that has been flying over the total at home, a New Orleans team that scored, 7 touchdowns last week on offense, should be capable of moving the football up and down the field once again.
No market respect for the Lions, 13-6 straight up since the bye last year. No loss by more than 7 points. Pressure, though, on Stafford, as you mentioned, should be a shootout. Can he keep up, and can he handle the pressure here, as now the Lions have a good shot to win the division?
Here, what are the Saints now? 12-2 to the over, their last 14 games, and a lot of that, lost 14 home games, I should say. And a lot of that has to do, obviously, with Drew Brees, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've been in all these shootouts, and opposing teams know they have to bring it when they go down to the Super Bowl. You know, Stafford's 99.3 QB rating. That's a career high. You know, the completion percentage, back-to-back career highs under Jim Bob Cooter as offense coordinator. They're talking about Cooter as a potential head coach somewhere next year. You know, Stafford knows what this matchup means. Look at the quote. You've got to understand who you're playing. Each game is going to have a different feel to it. This is really good offense, a talented group playing at their place where they're playing really well, putting up a bunch of points. So we just know that there's no number out there. We just need to make our drives count. We need to make sure that we have efficient drives and we're getting points. But, Pauly, you said it right there. The Lions are 13-6 straight up since the bye last year, and they haven't lost a game by more than a touchdown during that entire span. Are you ready? Can we give Detroit a little bit of respect just yet? Or no? They got to win in New Orleans on Sunday for you to do.
Yeah, got to win that game. They've been down in the fourth quarter of every game. That's a big reason why. I mean, they shouldn't be 7-4. A lot of breaks are going their way. But
let me ask you this.
Yep.
If they cover, will you give them respect?
Yes. Yes.
Fair enough.
Tough place to play, yeah. Last game, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Sunday Night Football, NBC. Carolina and Seattle. Revenge of the playoff game last year. Remember, Cam Newton grabbed the 12th man flag. Sherman said earlier this week, well, he did that. He had a smile on his face. That's karma for the season they're having this year. Seattle at home is 744.5 the total. The O-line issues caught up with them last week at Tampa. Wilson was sacked 6 times, 39 dropbacks, 8 runs for 80 yards, misleading. Many of those plays were sacks that he just escaped. They did nothing on offense.
Nothing on offense. That wasn't at Tampa. That was at, it was. But it was one of those games that was just ridiculously bad offensively, and it had everything to do with the offensive line. The center, Justin Britt, probably their best offensive lineman. He was active, but he didn't start. That role went to Joey Hunt, the rookie center, making his first NFL start. The right tackle, Gary Gilliam, he was taken out of the game after a couple series because of severe underperformance. Bradley Sowell came in his first game back from injury, and he wasn't very good. You know, the right guard, Fetty, he played as poorly as you would expect from a rookie sandwich between two inexperienced players that aren't playing well. The left tackle, George Fance, he was a rookie making only his second start away from home. And yeah, when you have an offensive line like that, cobbled together with a lot of young, inexperienced pieces, you know, it was bad from the first play of the game. Darrell Bevel on the impact of that pressure on Russell Wilson. Quote, he got sacked 6 times. They got a sack of the second play of the game and then rushed out of there the third play of the game. I'm not going to say that doesn't affect the quarterback. I think he was doing a good job. He was doing a good job of keeping his eyes down the field. It wasn't like he missed open receivers or anything. I think he was moving where he needed to move, but pressure is pressure. It's going to make you move around, and so do some different things. Now, when you have 6 sacks and 39 dropbacks, and you have to run out of the pocket 8 times, and it looks good, he's got 80 yards, but most of those were sacks that Wilson escaped, that's a disastrous effort from the offensive line. Seahawks OL's got to play better this week if they're going to have a hint of covering this number.
And we'll see if Rivera can rally the troops, because after they go to the Super Bowl, they're 4-7. They can run the table. They still probably won't get in the playoffs. And another tough loss that they let a late lead get away in Oakland last week. Rivera, one of the best late season records of any coach. He's up against it, though. Listen to this. Kuechly is doubtful. Rivera called the offensive line a catastrophe. It might be worse than the Seahawks. Or didn't make the trip. Khalil's out. Gradkowski's out. Williams is out. Ryan Wendell, they signed off the streets. He was last with the Patriots. Dan France, they get from Cleveland's practice squad. Larson will start at center. Turner moves from right guard to right tackle. He hasn't played tackle since high school. And likely Chris Scott at right guard. Oh my God, this is not what you want on the road in a night game in Seattle with this horrible offensive line and all these issues.
And of course, it's not like they can play, you know, they spent the week in San Jose, where they played at the same place where they hung out for the Super Bowl. And it's not like they have good memories of good practices before the Super Bowl either. You know, they stunk it up in that game. And obviously the preparation leading up to it wasn't good. Rivera's been a really good late season coach. You look at his December record or his last 5 games of his regular season record, he's as good straight up or ATS as any coach in the NFL. But you know who else is pretty good in that role? Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks. I don't want any part of Carolina on Sunday night.
All right, there it was. Rapid fire, 5 games. Now money time. Play of the day. Betting number 354. Falcons minus 4.5 at home. You know, you watch this show. You know the Falcons are for real. The markets aren't ready to accept it yet. But we know the Falcons are going to come with a big performance in this one. And it's a bad spot for Kansas City. After 5 quarters, the overtime game in Denver, now travel as well. Atlanta rested, and a good offense. And we think the Chiefs are kind of phony, too, as we talked about earlier on the show with some of these stats. So let's lay the 4.5 with Atlanta at home in this one. That's the play of the day. Have a good weekend out there. Thanks for watching SportsBit. When we come back Monday, we'll know the 4 teams in the college football playoff. And we'll recap. Hey, how strange was it not to recap any college football?
It was weird.
Yeah.
This is the first Thursday we haven't talked about, or the first Friday show haven't talked about Thursday football, college football, since August. So
I know.
I miss it. We'll talk about it next week. What is it, 2 weeks for bowl start?
Yeah, 17th. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Go through all the games. All right. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you Monday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.